Kevin Stefanski's dirty plan just got exposed, and Shedeur Sanders showed up to Browns practice today with the proof. Cameras caught something the Browns never wanted fans to see, and now the entire NFL is demanding answers. Shedeur wasn't supposed to be at practice, he wasn't supposed to take reps, and he definitely wasn't supposed to bring receipts, but he did. And this changes everything.
Back as your QB2 this week?
Yeah, he'll be limited today, Mary Kay, so need to see how he responds. Obviously, he's pushing very hard in rehab, but need to see how he does over the next couple of days.
Glenn didn't announce the other day who's going to play quarterback for him. What does that do to you guys if you have to prepare for two different guys?
Yeah, obviously two different players, but they're both good in their own right. I mean, Justin Fields is extremely dangerous. Very, very, very fast. They do a great job in the run game. He's a threat to make all the throws with his arm strength in the pass game, and then he can tuck it and run, as you've seen throughout this season. He's made some huge plays with his legs. Obviously, Tyrod's a veteran that knows what to do with the football, very accurate, good athlete, can make you miss, obviously, as he moves outside the pocket, but a veteran that really operates well. So, I have to be prepared for both guys.
How do you think the bye?
Kevin Stefanski just got caught red-handed, and the evidence is damning. After weeks of mystery surrounding Shedeur Sanders' back injury, the Browns head coach held a press conference that exposed his real plan, and it's not what you think. While everyone's focused on Shedeur being limited in practice, Stefanski dropped clues that reveal a calculated strategy to keep the rookie QB2 buried on the depth chart, even though Shedeur's pushing hard in rehab and ready to prove himself. The way he dodged questions, the strategic non-answers, the careful wording about not naming him QB2, it all points to something bigger happening behind closed doors in Cleveland. This isn't just about a back injury anymore.
As well, now that has passed, and this is the team going forward, making all focus.
Yeah, I understand the question, Daryl. I don't know how much guys spend time thinking about those type of things. I know it's speculative, and I know there's plenty of news outlets that cover those type of things, and that's what you have to do. But our guys don't spend much time on that. We kind of keep our focus where it is, and so that's the sense I've gotten from the guys.
At the time of the draft, both you and Andrew said of Dylan Gabriel that his height didn't show up on college game film. Mm-hmm. You think it's showing up now? I mean, his inability to get the ball to the receivers.
Yeah, I understand the question, Tony, but I would not characterize it that way. We need to play better as an offense. Certainly, there's areas to improve for a young quarterback, but it's really on all of us to improve.
You got it. Go ahead. Kevin, with Tommy obviously now taking over play calling duties, in terms of the game plan, does he get more latitude in terms of, does that change?
Yeah, I do think it's important with a play caller that you have a call sheet of plays that you're really comfortable with. So certainly this week, making sure Tommy's got the quote unquote final say. I'm letting him kind of put this thing together. Obviously, I'm helping and making my suggestions, but I want him to feel comfortable and confident with what's on that call sheet.
This is about politics, control, and the coaching staff that might be terrified of what happens when Shedeur actually gets his shot. And here's the wildest part. The proof was hiding in plain sight the entire press conference.
Some interesting starts, whether it was, international or on the road in some tough places. We have to play better as an offense. And certainly, Dylan is a big part of that, and making improvements coming off the bye is important.
Operationally different when you're not calling the plays?
In some ways, yes. But again, I think it's my job. Like I've told you guys before, I want to try to set people up for success regardless of what their role is. So if Tommy's role is changing a little bit, I need to do my part to help him out.
Would you say that with Tommy coming out of the college ranks recently, might that be beneficial for both of your rookie quarterbacks, knowing that he sort of has that college-y vibe?
I think it's probably a good question to ask Tommy. Mary Kay, I think Tommy's got the right way about him with veterans and young players, but certainly, to your point, when you're in the collegiate game, there's things that are different about the game, so it does help to, as you explain certain concepts or the way defenses play, I do think there's value in that.
Give Tommy final say on plays. Does that mean he'll have final say on whether to go for it on fourth down?
No, more as editor in chief. Let me put it that way. When you're putting a game plan together, at the end of the day, I get final say. We all know that, but I wanted to make sure he's comfortable with what as we put the plan together.
Game, obviously Quinshon's been fine, but it seems like it's a struggle with Dylan.
Look, I'm going to be real with you right now. Something shady is going down in Cleveland, and we need to talk about it. Because when Kevin Stefanski stepped up to that podium and got asked about Shedeur Sanders' return to practice, his answer told us everything we needed to know. And trust me, what he didn't say is even more revealing than what he did. So here's what went down. The media asked Stefanski a simple question. Will Shedeur be back as your QB2 this week? Now, if you're thinking like a normal person, you'd expect a straightforward answer, right? Either yes or no. Maybe throw in some coach speak about evaluating day by day or whatever.
Real better quarterback at this moment. I don't think he has anything personal against Shedeur. I do believe that last preseason game against the Rams impacted their evaluation of Shedeur. I know Rizzo and others might blow it off as being a meaningless, with fourth stringers playing, but I think it made an impact on their evaluation of Shedeur's readiness. Okay. And once the season started, as we've been talking about and writing about and talking about, it's tough to develop a rookie quarterback on the bench when you're trying to develop one who's your starter. Yeah. So where's the progress been made to put them higher on the depth chart, other than they traded Flacco and there's an opening there? So would the coach be opposed to trading Shedeur? I don't think so, but I don't think they'd ask him.
Yeah, you think ultimately, like, if a team called about Shedeur, that's an Andrew Berry, Jimmy Haslam discussion rather than Kevin, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Knowing that they have two possible QB2s and Bailey Zappi and potentially Deshaun Watson. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, well, we'll have to go get another quarterback if we trade Shedeur. I don't think that's the case. They feel that internally. But I really don't think there's anything to this other than it's a great talking point.
And don't you think here, Tony, there in Jimmy's mind, there would have to be a little bit, look, I've eaten some crow on letting quarterbacks go and them then looking good. We saw it happen a week ago with they traded Flacco and then he looked good that same week. So you'd have to think that from Jimmy's mind, he's like, I at least have to see this in some form, right?
Yeah. Is there a little bit of a fear that if we let him go without even seeing him?
But nah, Stefanski hit us with something completely different. He said he'll be limited today, so need to see how he responds. Obviously, he's pushing very hard in rehab, but need to see how he does over the next couple days. Wait, hold up. Did you catch that? Stefanski completely avoided the question. The reporter asked if Shedeur would be QB2, and instead of answering, Stefanski pivoted to talking about limitations in practice and rehab. That's politician-level deflection right there. And when coaches start talking like politicians, you know something's up. Now, let's break this down piece by piece because the details matter here. Stefanski admits that Shedeur is pushing very hard in rehab. That's important. That tells us Shedeur wants to be out there. The kid's hungry. He's working. He's doing everything the medical staff is asking him to do. But then Stefanski asked this line about needing to see how he responds and see how he does over the next couple days. Bro, Shedeur's been dealing with this back injury for weeks now. The Browns medical staff knows exactly what his condition is. They've got MRIs, they've got evaluations, they've got daily reports from the training room. So why is Stefanski acting like they're still in the dark? Why is he treating this like some mystery that needs to be solved day by day? I'll tell you why. Because keeping Shedeur in limbo serves the purpose. Think about it. If you name Shedeur as QB2, you're making a statement. You're saying this rookie has earned the backup spot over whoever else is competing for it. You're also putting pressure on Dylan Gabriel, your struggling starter, because now there's a real alternative breathing down his neck. But if you keep Shedeur in this weird, limited in practice, maybe QB2, maybe not purgatory, you maintain control. You keep everyone guessing. You don't have to commit. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Throughout this entire press conference, Stefanski was asked multiple questions about his quarterbacks, and his answers painted a picture that should worry every Shedeur Sanders fan out there. When asked about Dylan Gabriel and whether his height is now becoming an issue in the NFL, Stefanski deflected again. He said, "We need to play better as an offense. Certainly there's areas to improve for a young quarterback, but it's really on all of us to improve." Classic coach speak, right? It's not just the QB, it's everybody. But here's the thing. When your first-round quarterback is struggling to get the ball to receivers, when he's looking overmatched in games, and when your offensive coordinator just got demoted from play-calling duties, that's not a team problem. That's a quarterback problem. And everybody in that press conference room knew it. But Stefanski won't say it out loud because admitting Dylan isn't working means admitting the Browns might need to look at other options. Options like Shedeur Sanders. Now, before we go any further, let me address something here. I know some of you are probably thinking, come on, Shedeur's hurt, of course they're being careful with him. And yeah, I get that. Player safety matters. Nobody wants to see a young quarterback rush back too soon and make an injury worse. But here's what doesn't add up. Stefanski himself said Shedeur is pushing very hard in rehab. That means the kid feels good enough to push himself. That means he's progressing. That means the medical staff is allowing him to do more. So why wouldn't you name him QB2? Why keep it vague? Unless there's another reason. Let me paint you the picture of what's really happening here. The Browns are 3-5 after 8 games. They just came off a bye week where they were supposed to figure things out, get recharged, and come back ready to make a playoff push. But let's be honest, this team looks lost. Dylan Gabriel has shown flashes, sure, but he's also shown major limitations. The offensive coordinator, Tommy Rees, just got taken over play calling duties from Stefanski, which is basically an admission that what they were doing wasn't working. So now you've got a coaching staff that's under massive pressure. Jimmy Haslam, the Browns owner, doesn't exactly have a reputation for patience. If this season goes south, jobs are on the line. Stefanski knows this. His assistants know this. And here's where Shedeur Sanders becomes a problem for them. Not because he's not good, but because he might be too good. Think about it from Stefanski's perspective. If you push Shedeur as QB2 and something happens to Dylan, suddenly Shedeur's getting real game reps. And if Shedeur balls out, which, let's be real, he's got the talent to do, now you've got a quarterback controversy. The fans start chanting for Shedeur. The media starts asking why Dylan is still the starter. And if you're Kevin Stefanski, you're trying to lose control of your offense and maybe your locker room. But if you keep Shedeur limited in practice and not guaranteed as QB2, you control the narrative. You can keep trying out Dylan out there, hoping he figures it out, without the constant pressure of a talented rookie waiting in the wings. It's a protection mechanism, but not for Shedeur, for themselves. And here's what makes this even more frustrating for Shedeur Sanders fans. This kid has been professional from day one. When the Browns drafted him, there were questions about whether a guy from Colorado from a spread offense could transition to the NFL. Shedeur shut that noise down in training camp. He showed up in shape, learned the playbook, impressed coaches with his arm talent and football IQ. Then the back injury happened, and suddenly everything stopped. But now he's back. He's pushing hard in rehab, according to Stefanski's own words. He's doing everything right. And what does he get? Vague non-answers about his status and no commitment to naming him QB2. That's not fair to the kid, and it's not fair to Browns fans who want to see what they've got in their young quarterbacks. Now, let's talk about what Stefanski said about the offense as a whole, because this gives us even more context. When asked about self-evaluation coming out of the bye week, he went into this long explanation about looking at personnels, schemes, and making sure coaches are putting players in the best position to succeed. He talked about condensing learnings into action items and focusing on the big bullet points. You know what that sounds like to me? That sounds like a coaching staff that knows they're failing, but isn't sure how to fix it. Because if you really knew what the problem was, you wouldn't need a bye week to figure out your action items. You'd already be implementing solutions. The fact they're still in the evaluation phase after 8 games tells you everything about where this team is mentally. And here's the kicker. While Stefanski was talking about putting players in the best position to succeed, he's simultaneously keeping Shedeur Sanders in a situation where he can succeed. How is a young quarterback supposed to develop when he's stuck in this limbo of limited practice reps and we'll see how he responds? How is he supposed to build chemistry with the offense when he's not getting consistent work with the team? The answer is he can't. And maybe that's the point.
Look, I don't want to sound like I'm wearing a tinfoil hat here, but the evidence is right in front of us. Stefanski's press conference was full of carefully chosen words and strategic non-answers. When pressed about Dylan Gabriel's struggles, he deflected to team issues. When asked about Shedeur's status, he kept it vague. When questioned about the offense's direction, he gave generic coach speak about evaluation and improvement. But here's what we know for sure. Shedeur Sanders is healthy enough to push hard in rehab. He's clearly wanted to get back out there and compete. And the Browns coaching staff is choosing to keep him in a holding pattern rather than giving him a clear path to back to QB2. Now, I want to be fair to Shedeur here, because this situation isn't his fault at all. In fact, the way he's handled this whole thing shows exactly why Browns fans should be excited about him. Think about it. He gets drafted, works his tail off in camp, earns respect from teammates, then gets sidelined with an injury. And through it all, you haven't heard a single complaint from him. No social media drama, no leaks to reporters about being frustrated. He's just putting his head down and doing the work. That's the kind of mentality you want in a quarterback. That's leadership. And it makes you wonder what this Browns offense could look like if they actually committed to developing him instead of keeping him buried on the depth chart behind the struggling starter. Because let's talk about Dylan Gabriel for a second. I'm not trying to pile on the kid. He's a rookie too, and he's dealing with his own challenges. But the reality is, the offense isn't working with him under center. They're averaging barely any points per game, they can't sustain drives, and Dylan's completion percentage and decision-making have been major concerns. Stefanski can talk all day about everyone needing to improve, but at some point, you have to look at the quarterback position and ask if you got the right guy out there. And that's where Shedeur Sanders becomes dangerous to the coaching staff's plans. Because if you give Shedeur real reps and he shows he can run this offense better than Dylan, now you got decisions to make. Tough decisions, career-defining decisions. And if you're Kevin Stefanski trying to save your job, you might not want to open that can of worms. So instead, you keep Shedeur limited in practice, you don't name him QB2, you buy yourself more time to see if Dylan can figure it out. And if Dylan doesn't figure it out, well, at least you can say you gave him every chance and didn't rush to put a still recovering Shedeur into the fire. It's self-preservation disguised as caution, and Shedeur Sanders is caught in the middle of it. Now, here's where things get really interesting going forward. The Browns are about to face the Jets, a team that's also struggling, but with a defense that can create chaos. If Dylan has another rough game, the calls for Shedeur are going to get louder. If the Browns lose and fall to 3-9, the pressure on Stefanski intensifies. And at some point, keeping Shedeur in limbo stops being a viable strategy. Because here's what the Browns front office has to be thinking right now. We spent draft capital on 2 quarterbacks. Dylan was the first-round pick, the safer choice, the guy who was supposed to come in and compete right away. Shedeur was the development guy, the high-ceiling talent that maybe needs more time. But what if we got it backwards? What if Shedeur is actually the guy who gives us the best chance to win right now? That question terrifies coaches because it means admitting they got it wrong. It means making a change that could blow up in their faces. But it's also the question that could save their season.
And look, I want to bring this back to something important. Shedeur Sanders isn't just fighting for playing time in Cleveland. He's fighting against a narrative that's been built around him since college. People said he couldn't handle pro-style offenses. They said he was too reliant on his offensive line at Colorado. They questioned whether his success was more about Deion's coaching and the talent around him than his own ability. Every practice rep Shedeur gets is a chance to prove those doubters wrong. Every QB2 designation is validation that he belongs. And every vague non-answer from Stefanski is a roadblock in that journey. That's what makes this situation so frustrating. Shedeur's doing everything right, but the politics of the NFL are keeping him from getting his opportunity. But here's why I'm still bullish on Shedeur Sanders despite all this. The kid's got the mental toughness to handle this adversity. He's been dealing with pressure and expectations his whole life. Being Deion's son means every throw gets scrutinized, every game gets dissected, every decision gets questioned. And through all of that, Shedeur stayed focused and kept improving. So when Kevin Stefanski keeps him in this limited practice purgatory, Shedeur's not going to complain. He's going to keep pushing in rehab. He's going to keep studying film. He's going to keep preparing like he's the starter, even though he's not even officially the backup yet. Because that's what separates good players from great ones. The ability to stay ready even when the circumstances aren't ideal. And that work ethic is going to pay off. Maybe not this week, maybe not against the Jets, but eventually. Because the truth always comes out in the NFL. If Dylan continues to struggle, there's only so long Stefanski can hide behind injury concerns and practice limitations before he has to give Shedeur a real shot. And when that moment comes, Shedeur is going to be ready. Think about the irony here. Stefanski's trying to protect his starter and his game plan by keeping Shedeur at arm's length. But in doing so, he's building up this narrative where Shedeur becomes the hero waiting in the wings. Every game Dylan struggles, fans wonder what Shedeur could do. Every press conference where Stefanski dodges questions about QB2, the intrigue grows. Stefanski's trying to control the situation, but he's actually making Shedeur more interesting, more talked about, more desired by the fan base. It's like that old saying, you can't stop the sunrise. Talent finds a way. And Shedeur Sanders has the talent, the arm strength to make every throw, the pocket presence to handle pressure, the football IQ to read defenses and make quick decisions, the leadership qualities to command a huddle. All of that is there. The only thing stopping him right now is opportunity. And that's what makes this press conference from Stefanski so revealing. He's not protecting Shedeur. He's not being cautious about a back injury. He's protecting his own interests and his struggling starter. The proof is in how he answered that question, or rather, how he didn't answer it. He'll be limited today, need to see how he responds. That's not a medical update. That's a stall tactic. But here's the beautiful part about the NFL. You can only stall for so long. Eventually, results matter. Eventually, wins and losses matter. And if the Browns keep losing with Dylan under center while Shedeur is sitting on the sideline pushing hard in rehab, someone's going to have to answer for that. Jimmy Haslam didn't buy an NFL team to watch it flounder at 3-5 while talented quarterbacks rot on the bench. So where does this leave us? Well, Shedeur Sanders is going to keep doing what he's been doing, working, preparing, staying professional. Kevin Stefanski is going to keep doing what he's been doing, managing the media, protecting his starter, buying time. And Browns fans are going to keep doing what they've been doing, wondering when they'll finally get to see what they've got in your talented young backup quarterback. But mark my words, this story isn't over, not even close, because talent doesn't stay hidden forever. And when Shedeur Sanders finally gets his chance, whether it's as QB2 getting emergency reps or eventually competing for the starting job, all this limited in practice nonsense is going to look real silly in hindsight. The proof of what's really happening in Cleveland isn't in what Kevin Stefanski said in that press conference. It's in what he refused to say. It's in the careful wording, the deflections, the non-answers. And any Browns fan paying attention should be asking themselves, if Shedeur's really just dealing with a back injury that needs more time, why won't they just name him QB2 when he's healthy? What are they really afraid of? The answer might be simpler than we think. They're afraid Shedeur might actually be that guy, the franchise quarterback they've been searching for, the talent that makes everyone else expendable. And once you open that door, you can't close it again. So here's my question for you. Do you think Kevin Stefanski is genuinely being cautious with Shedeur's injury? Or is there something else going on here? And more importantly, do you think Shedeur should be QB2 right now, even with the back concerns? Let me know in the comments below because I want to hear what you think about this whole situation. Look, at the end of the day, the Cleveland Browns are at a crossroads. They've got a struggling offense, a head coach under pressure, and two young quarterbacks trying to prove they belong in the NFL. Shedeur Sanders represents the unknown, the potential that could either save this season or blow up in everyone's faces. And that's exactly why Kevin Stefanski is being so careful about how he handles this situation. But careful doesn't always mean right. And at some point, the Browns are going to have to decide if they want to keep playing it safe with Dylan Gabriel or if they want to see what kind of ceiling Shedeur Sanders actually has. Because right now, they're stuck in the middle, not committed to either quarterback, not willing to make a definitive statement about their future. And trust me, that's the most dangerous place to be in the NFL. Because while you're sitting there trying to figure out who your quarterback is, the rest of the league is passing you by. The season doesn't wait for anyone. And every week you waste keeping talent on the sideline is a week you can't get back.
If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Kevin Stefanski press conference and what it really means for Shedeur Sanders, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're going to be following this Browns quarterback situation all season long, and trust me, it's only going to get more interesting from here. Drop a comment, let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.